As a reader, I would define myself as deliberate. I read for a purpose. I read slowly, carefully. I was never able to master skim reading. I want to make sure I don't miss anything. I get so wrapped up in the story that most of the time I am unable to put the book down. I will stay up until the wee hours of the morning, sacrificing hours of sleep just to stay with the characters. I visualize the people, the places, and the things, becoming so invested in the story that I am always disappointed when it comes to the end. As a non-reader, I am much the same. I like to live in the moment. I take my time and enjoy every bit I can. I am also a bit of a perfectionist, which may explain why I am unable to skim read. There have been many factors throughout my life that have contributed to the type of reader that I am today. The biggest influence on my reading has been my mom. My mom loves to read. She can go through multiple books in just a few days. When I was little, she would read to me every night before bed. My favorites were Go Dog Go and I'll Love You Forever, books that I envisioned myself reading to my own kids one day. Growing up, my family would spend our summers at our house on Ocracoke Island. I watched my mom read almost every day. She was and continues to be my hero, so I would want to read like her. Additionally, my mom had my brother and I pick any book we wanted and spend 30 to 45 minutes reading every other day throughout the summer. I love spending this time laying on the couch or in my bed and just escaping somewhere else for a little while. Looking back, spending that time in the summer contributed greatly to who I am as a reader now. A second thing that has greatly influenced my reading life is school. In elementary school, I loved reading. My elementary school teachers allowed me to read whatever I wanted and were always supportive and encouraging of my choices, such as Little House on the Prairie, Anne of Green Gables, and my favorite, Boxcar Children. Each of my teachers throughout elementary school would also read aloud to the class at the end of the day, which I really enjoyed. However, things started changing when I got to middle school and high school. As the amount of homework and required reading got higher, the amount of time I had to spend reading for pleasure decreased. Another factor that has influenced my reading life is television, especially during middle school and high school. After reading something for school or doing hours of homework, watching television just seems so much easier and more relaxing than reading. As the amount of time spent watching television increased, the amount of time I spent reading for pleasure decreased. Similarly, the internet began affecting my reading in middle school when I got an instant messenger account. In high school, my reading decreased even further when Facebook became popular. Though the internet gives us access to many more research sources, it also serves as a great distraction for many, including myself. In some ways, I can see that these distractions stunted my development as a reader, along with other factors. One of the biggest reasons I've developed in certain ways as a reader is changing interests. As my interests have changed, what I read for pleasure changes. When I started having crushes on boys in middle school, I started reading more Sarah Dessen books, which were primarily about romantic relationships. This turned out to be an author whose books I would continue to read throughout high school. As I got more interested in fashion, I read more magazines like Lucky and Cosmopolitan. Since my boyfriend and I got our puppy, I've been reading more books about dogs. Books like Cesar Millan's Leader of the Pack are my new favorites. My changing interests have had a huge impact on my development as a reader. Another way that I developed as a reader, or rather another way that my development as a reader was stunted, was through school. The demands of middle school and high school became so high that the time I had to read for fun was decreased. Additionally, when teachers started assigning books that I did not want to read, it made reading less fun for me. In fact, the only books I remember reading in middle and high schools that I actually enjoyed were To Kill a Mockingbird, Great Gatsby, and The Scarlet Letter. By my senior year of high school, I was not even reading the books in my AP English class. I once wrote a 10-page paper on a book I didn't even read. If I remember correctly, I received an A on the paper. While my development as a reader was pretty much at a standstill, my ability to bullshit and get away with it was on the rise. While I did not have this view while I was in middle and high school, I do believe that the purpose of reading is to gain knowledge that you previously did not have. As said in a Chinese proverb, you cannot open a book without learning something. Therefore, I believe that reading is an appropriate way to support teaching and learning of content material. However, I believe that it should not be the only way. Reading is a great resource, but if not combined with other methods to support learning, such as watching video clips, doing practice problems in math, having discussions, doing projects, etc., then learning is still limited. While I do believe that reading is a good resource when combined with other teaching and learning methods, I do have some concerns. My major concern is how I would incorporate reading into a mathematics classroom. What would we read other than a textbook? How could I make sure that the reading would actually enhance students' understanding of the content? I fear that students would not get anything out of a reading in a mathematics classroom, and that both their time and mine would be wasted. I think that these are fears and concerns that can only be worked out with practice and experience. I also think that the potential benefits outweigh any of my fears or concerns. From Go Dog Go to leader of the pack, my reading life has definitely changed over the years. Though it went through a bit of a rough patch in middle and high schools, my reading life is on the mend. I am beginning to find more time to read for pleasure, and the old feelings of getting lost in a book are coming back to me. It has felt great to have this spark reignited in me, and as a future teacher, I hope to encourage this spark and love of reading in all my students.